Hi, Sue. It's lovely to have this time to chat with you. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Andy. I'm a physiotherapist. I trained in Bradford many years ago and moved down to London, worked clinically, ended up specialising in the area of brain injury rehabilitation. So worked in North East London, helping particularly young men, as it turned out, who'd had motorbike accidents, that kind of thing, back into their families, work life, education, into their communities. Then at the same time, I was also a member of our professional body, which is also a combined professional body and trade union, Chartered Society of Physiotherapy. And I had actually been a union steward and was very interested in, I suppose, the politics of healthcare and the politics of our organisation. So ended up applying for a job, and I've worked at the CSP ever since in different roles. So fast forward to now, I'm what they call an assistant director, but basically what that means is I lead a variety of programs of work that support the practice of physiotherapy across the United Kingdom. So work with a team of people, and we do everything from lobby government around policy, particularly policy that impacts on the delivery of health and care, and the provision of services like physiotherapy. We work with lots of other bodies, professional bodies, patient groups and organisations to do that work. I lead a team of people who run an inquiries line, a hotline basically. So we have about 59,000 members across the United Kingdom, and we run an inquiry service, and my team provide a kind of a second tier call answering, and we answer the sort of very standard kind of questions that you might expect from clinicians, and then we answer the kind of weird and wonderful questions. People get involved in all kinds of activities in terms of physiotherapy. So with the breadth of physiotherapy, the profession is very broad. We cover mental health, children, older people, end of life care, everything in between, animals. So I've absolutely loved my job, love the National Health Service and health and care environment, and love the link as well to that kind of political shaping of the healthcare environment. Shall I say something about how my job has kind of looked during the COVID
Yeah,
period?
yeah,
So it's been, some people have used the word exciting, and I wouldn't want anybody to take offence from that word, but it has been, albeit an incredibly difficult time. It has also been an exciting time in terms of the adrenaline going, needing to be very responsive and very creative in responses. So when the first week of lockdown hit, we had an unprecedented demand on the society for support from physiotherapists. And again, to give you a couple of examples, we had physiotherapists who particularly, for example, would work in respiratory care, who were at the forefront of leading teams, both in the intensive care environment, high dependency kind of environment, but also physiotherapists who worked across that kind of acute community divide, with people who've got long-term conditions, asthma, chronic obstructive disease, that kind of thing. And they were incredibly concerned both for the safeguarding of their patients with long-term conditions, but also what it meant for them working in those intensive care, high dependency kind of environments.
Yeah.
We had a lot of physiotherapists who normally worked in, for example, areas like musculoskeletal services. So any of you who are kind of undergoing physiotherapy outpatients at the moment, you will have had your appointments cancelled. Many of you probably will have been discharged because services all of a sudden shut down. So non-COVID services shut down. But what was happening in hospitals was that staff were being redeployed. And of course, if you're ordinarily seeing sort of people who have hip, knee and back problems and you're being told to go onto a rehab kind of ward, that can feel very challenging. Plus, you've got the challenge not just of the clinical work, but of what does COVID mean, the coronavirus mean to you and your family? And the fear was palpable at that moment in time. And I have to say, I spent the first 3.5 weeks, I was terrified. I was terrified that, not for myself so much as Shane would get it, my parents would get it, people would die who I loved. And that fear is something I don't think I've ever experienced before in that kind of way. And I'm sure many other people will relate to that. It felt terrifying. So we were dealing with members who had all that personal stuff going on as well as their professional duty. And then we have a whole group of members, nearly, I think it's around 6,000 of our members work in the private sector. And many of those members, and we have them around in Thorner, Barwick and Scholes, who are physiotherapists who operate as either sole practitioners or have small practices that support local populations. And of course, those practices were in a horrific position of, they were identified as an exception. They didn't actually have to close. The government said, like medical services, you can stay open, but in reality, so that we safeguarded the public, they had to shut because there was a risk of people catching the disease at that point, or a very high risk. And so those members were within days seeing their income, their livelihoods, the hard work that they put into building up their practices literally evaporating in front of their eyes. And it hasn't really stopped, it's changed, but you will all know, because you're seeing the sort of the journey of the virus, you're seeing the political response to it. It at times has been very challenging, it's been at times confusing, it's not clear. We're all kind of having to engage with, what does it mean for me? And sometimes it's just too hard to understand what it means for us. And when your livelihood is attached to all of that, it's incredibly difficult times. So I have been screamed at, cried on virtually, called names, but I've also been thanked massively. The team have, it's for being there and just talking to people, and you can hear it's been sorry, I didn't expect to cry.
It's really affected you, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a very, very emotional time, and I think it's, for most of us, because most of us haven't been through the front line of a war or anything like that. It's for our generations, it's kind of the equivalent of an unprecedented situation. And it's been, I have felt incredibly challenged professionally, as well as personally, but I felt incredibly challenged to support this range of sort of scenarios that people are presenting. And of course, it's like any of us with any membership organisation. you know, we all demand the service that we want when we want it from organisations that we pay a membership subscription to, and it's very difficult for people to understand if we can't provide them or give them the answers they want at the time they want it. And but on the other side of that, you know, I've had teams working, you know, we've worked weekends, I have worked so many extra hours, so have many of the team, because you really care about what's happening, you want to provide a good service, but it's draining. So there is the kind of the excitement about you're up for a challenge and you want to do a great job, and we found different ways to do things, and as a team we've really come together in a way that we never have before, because there's a level playing field, because we're all operating on Zoom. The hours we're all spending on Zoom is, you know, incredible, but nobody's in the office, there's no home workers, office workers, there's a level playing field about what we're all doing. So the team have come together in a way that they never have done before, because you've got a common purpose with the pressure that we're all facing. But it's like this parallel world of everybody's got their own personal domestic situations, and some of which have been incredibly challenging. And yeah, it's exhausting. I think the sort of the mental demands are really significant, and they will have been for a lot of people in a lot of different scenarios.
Wow, yeah, really a challenging situation, and yeah. You can see that it's been a difficult one for you. Where has God been in that situation?
I don't know whether this is simple or difficult to answer. And I think that kind of reflects actually where I think God has been in all of this. I think one of the things I've thought a lot about over the last 3 months is about belief and faith in all sorts of ways. So not just in terms of a religious faith or belief, but you know, the government is the obvious one I've been thinking about in terms of their political steer and leadership. But I think I can remember it was a Thursday, and it was sort of 3.5 weeks into lockdown, and it was a Thursday morning, and I can remember sitting at my desk thinking, oh, I feel normal today. It was such a weird thing. I didn't have the grip of that anxiety, and it took me until about 10:30 to realise I actually felt normal. And I don't really know why suddenly on that particular day I then went into normal, but I do know that in those 3.5 weeks I've probably prayed like I'd never prayed before, and don't we all when times are challenging and bad? And what that made me realise is how much of an anchor my faith is, and how much I forget that a lot of the time. So, and then you asked some of us to do reflections, and I can tell you I absolutely did not want to. And the only reason why I said yes, apart from the fact it was you asking, was you need to step up, Sue, you need to contribute, people need this to happen. So it was kind of that professional duty that kicked in. But I'm so glad I have, because it has made me realise that my faith is an absolute thread and core that I can rely on, but I forget about so much actually in day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And I think it has given me a resilience that I might not have had, and a strength, but I think it's for me it's about belief and hope. I think hope is such a fundamental need. We all need hope, even in good times. Hope is, for me, is so incredibly important, and I think that's what my faith gives me, that gives me a resilience and a strength. So we have faced, in terms of work, particularly with the private practice scenario, where members were not getting the service they needed from the society, and I won't go into the sort of details of that, but I found myself saying, right, I just want to have open Zoom meetings. I just want to advertise it. I want any member in the private sector to be able to come. And if other colleagues want to join me, that's great. But I don't care if it's myself. I need the society to be up in front of those members, and I need them to feel they're being listened to, and hopefully we can answer their questions, their queries, and hopefully give them hope that they can get through this and it will be okay. And I think that my faith was fundamental in giving me that, the drive to do it. I don't know that it was a brave thing particularly, but it was a challenging thing to potentially not know what you will get thrown at you. And we went ahead and we did it, and eventually persuaded colleagues to join me, and of course it was absolutely fine, and we had 1,400 people sign up within 12 hours of us advertising it. And so I turned to my chief executive, and we both smiled at each other, because she had actually been in the same position. She had wanted to do this, so, and we both just knew that it was the right thing to do, and was so glad. But I think for me, that sense of doing the right thing based on the values that my faith, my upbringing has brought me, has been so important in the end. But it's like, I think the first 3.5 weeks particularly were like that. You know the story, is it The Pilgrim's Journey? I always forget this, where you've got a set of footprints on the beach, and at one point there's only one footprint, and God, where have you gone? Well, actually I was carrying you. Yeah. And I think that it's made me think a lot about that. So when you asked me to do the interview, I felt very tentative, because I'm not sure that my faith is strong. I can't, like I said in one of my reflections, I'm not a theologian. I can't remember references in the Bible. It's not that I don't know the stories, but I was never sure that my faith was strong. But I think what this time has shown me is that it's an absolute lifeline. It's there. It really is fundamental.
Yeah, hope. And that story of the footprints has been so powerful to so many in this time. I think that has resonated with many people.
Yeah, and it's and this is obviously just my story, and I think you look around and you see, I think what has been amazing during this time is just watching people step up, people who you may never have even really noticed before in many ways, who step up. People, you know, we talk about key workers, we talk about the NHS, but the care sector, the shopkeepers, the bus drivers, you know, all those other key workers as well, the bravery, the stepping up. And to me, that is hope. That is people wanting to be there to support other people, working together to get us all through it. And that, I think that's been the biggest show of hope about, through all the political shenanigans, the civil unrest that we're seeing through the Black Lives Matter campaign and everything that has brought up, and some of the really awful faces of this country and people in this country and across the world, there are some equally amazing stories and pictures of how we do operate, and for me that really is about hope and faith.
Fantastic. That's really powerful. Thank you very much, Sue. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Again, any other area that you think, you know, this is where I've seen God? I mean, that what you've said already, that I mean, I can see already it could beautifully link in with a service where we're talking about hope. But yeah, is there any other place where you think this is where I've seen God at work?
I think the one shout out I will actually give is well, actually two. One is to my dad, and what my dad and mum, but what they have given me through this time is they take prayer very seriously and are fastidious in the use of prayer, and I really admire that. And I think I've had conversations with other people as well about the power of prayer at times like this, and I've had support from people who I would say I don't have necessarily ordinarily strong, close relationships with, but have offered prayer as a way of support, and that has been incredibly comforting. But there's something that's more than comfort. It feels a real arm of support at that time, and you know, for you, Andy, and for Bob, and for the team of people who have led a very consistent spiritual, yeah, you've just been very strong in that spiritual leadership, and that to me and to us here has been part of that thread, that strength and that resilience. So I think God has been very present in lots of different ways that have been very fundamental to this time. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. Thank you very much. Okay. So I will stop recording now.